Hi, and welcome back to Live with Lighthouse. This is the show where we guide you to the technology, talent, and marketing solutions to drive your business forward. It's powered by Lighthouse Technology Services, the place for technology and talent. I'm your host, Joe Ray, as always, and wanted to thank you back. I'm really excited for this week's episode. Shannon Truax is my guest this week. She's the Senior Vice President for Social Media at M&T Bank. In just over 3 years there with the bank, she's done an incredible job revolutionizing social into a channel that not only is going to help build trust in the communities they serve and get people excited to follow them on social, but she's also developed an incredible program for employee advocacy to help get the bank's employees involved in social, telling their stories, amplifying their messages. Really incredible discussion this week. Encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn at Lighthouse Technology Services, and make sure you're subscribed to Live with Lighthouse wherever you get your podcast to make sure you tune into future episodes as well. I appreciate you tuning in wherever you're tuning in for this week's podcast, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts to catch future episodes of Live with Lighthouse. Hey, Shannon, welcome into Live with Lighthouse. Thanks so much for joining me.
You're so welcome, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a real joy to get to know you the last couple months here that we've connected through some work, and really curious to hear a little bit more about your journey as well. Was doing some reading. I saw you started your career as a teacher and then started shifting into agency and in-house social roles, and now you've been with M&T for a couple of years. So if you want to just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey.
I'd be happy to. My journey certainly has not been linear, has it? Anyone that thinks there's a straight ladder that you climb up, that has not been the case for me. What I have been doing is leaning into my passion around telling stories and connecting with people throughout my career that's gone on for so many years. Starting with teaching English, where the goal is getting 37 students in one moment in time to all want to read a book, raise their hand in class with confidence, participate and pass, right? And that challenge being a teacher was fun for me. I liked figuring out the way different students learned, what excited them, what motivated them, and getting everybody to belong and come along on the journey and pass their tests and get great grades and be a collaborative team as a classroom. And I loved that. But I wanted to transfer that passion into something different in the workplace. And I moved over to Microsoft when they were launching Windows Live. And those same sorts of things I was passionate about teaching transferred over. Like, why would you use a Microsoft product over a product by Apple? And how do you connect new things like the cloud at the time with customers and getting them to believe in it and use it? So I did a lot of work in the user interface space and wrote blogs for MSN and did internal comms and did a bunch of work at Microsoft until social media became this new thing that nobody knew what it was. And I said, you know what? It's not a fad. This is a marketing vehicle to tell stories and connect and engage in a one-to-one conversation. So could I pitch a job? And I did. And I started doing social for Microsoft Store. And I've been with social media as a career ever since. And I love that it's a fast-moving space that is nuanced depending on the platform you're working in, thinking about what people want in that space, thinking about what kind of brand you're working on. And I've done tech, CPG, electronics, autos, and I've done it at publishers and at agencies. And now I'm in-house at M&T Bank for 3 years, and now I'm at a bank. And people thought, well, bank, I said, I'm going to make it cool to follow a bank in social and do all those things that I've been doing throughout my career. And, at the end of the day, I like to say that I'm a global marketing leader transforming brands through effective social media strategies and amazing content activations. And so I think as I think about that spiraled journey that I've taken throughout my career, at the end of the day, that's what I do. And that's what I'm focusing on at the bank over these last 3 years.
That is such an incredible journey. And just to see the common thread that storytelling plays through there really makes everything come into focus a little bit differently and just incredible to see. And you've done some incredible work. You're definitely helping make the bank seem cool to follow on social. And I always love seeing all the journeys and all the stories that come through the social channels there. I'm really excited to dig into some of those strategies and how that comes together for you.
Yeah, it is. It's been a fun 3 years that I've kind of looked at in like 3 different phases, and how I've built out the bank. And now I kind of see myself in a 4th phase. And I think it would be okay. Could I kind of describe, what I've
Yeah.
done since I've gotten to the bank to kind of bring us along?
Yeah,
It
by
was
all means. That's a great icebreaker to start with. Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
thanks. When I started, I was the first person the bank hired to do social. And I thought,
Oh,
what an
wow.
amazing opportunity to come into such a, a well-respected, reputable bank who is known for getting into their communities, getting involved, planting their flag to stay in their community, uplift that community, and serve. And I knew I was going into a good bank with that trust and that solid reputation behind it. How do you take those experiences and bring them into the social space to tell that story there? And that's where I started. So I looked at the social platforms we were in and decided that, okay, we're not in Instagram, but let's figure out how we get there. That's a wonderful place to tell stories. So we launched a new channel. We established a new social media policy that would inform leadership, the board, employees that, hey, we're not going to mess up. We're not going to do it wrong. We will do this with compliance and legal in mind. And there's a way to do that. And so we structured that, finalized that policy. We looked at the creative space and thought the creative is good, but it kind of looks similar to things you might see in a bank brochure. We know that people don't go to social to read brochures. They go to Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram to see something unique in that way. So we reformed our creative to really lean into what people want in the platform at hand. So we had a strategy for each platform. And we want people to follow us in multiple places. So if I put the same thing on Facebook that I do LinkedIn, I'm not giving you a reason to follow us in both. I want to give you a reason. So let's differentiate that experience, right? And so
Hmm.
there was a lot of work in that sort of effort. And at the end of the day, we told stories that the bank wanted to tell around customer experience, building a talented team, creating shareholder value, and how we uplift our communities. And all of this is working. Engagement is tripling. Things are going really well. And then we moved into a second phase, and we might get into this a little bit later around employee advocacy and
Hmm.
bringing along our people. We stood up ourselves. However, people don't want to necessarily hear from brands about how great they are. And we have a tendency to skip ads as we're going through social media. So as we do our work, how do we layer in the employee advocacy piece? The third phase was around social listening. So now we can tell what the landscape is saying about certain financial topics in general, or those stories and topics that include us that we might not be aware of because they're not happening on our own platform. They're happening somewhere else. So now we have this broad, robust social media listening capability. And as we move into a fourth phase, we're going to think about how do we sell? And how do we sell the right way with compliance in mind, with mobile in mind and social in mind, and make some of our capabilities more in depth on that front next.
The whole journey right there, I think, is really helpful for people to see that it's not just a one-step solution of going to social media and start selling through social media. There's so much work that happens before that, laying the foundation, building the brand, deciding the stories you're going to tell, giving people, like you said, giving people a reason to follow the platform, and then getting to that point. And really excited to dig into some of the different facets that go in there, Shannon. Really wanted to start too because you mentioned the four story pillars in that little story right there, and I know we've talked about those offline as well. Can you kind of talk about how, when you came into M&T and started setting up social strategy there, were those four story pillars in place already, or were those things that you looked at from your research and getting to know the bank and saying, okay, on social media, these are the things we're going to focus on?
They were pretty much in place and endemic at what the brand is all about. However, it wasn't really crystallized on how you would tell a story about customer experience or something around uplifting a community. And I saw a lot of posts that were proud to announce. We're proud to support Pride Month. We are proud to support. And then you read that as you think of yourself in the place of a viewer looking at that. And it's like, I expect someone to tell me something, but I don't believe them. Today's users and social media, they don't necessarily believe what you have to say. They're smart. They know how they feel about the brand. They know how they feel when they interact with your content. And if you come off as being vague, general, overstating, it doesn't connect and have an emotional attachment to it, and people don't really believe it. So one thing I was really keen on getting my collaborative teams around me is to like, let's go above announcing it and being proud. Let's not tell, let's show. So how do then, without being proud to announce, how do I show you that we're proud to support Pride or Hispanic Heritage Month or AAPI? Because we are proud, but we can't say we're proud. We have to show we're proud because today's viewer will sniff out people who are making things up and not being genuine, and we are genuine. So let's turn the camera away from ourselves. Let's focus on our customers. Let's focus on our teams. Let's put people's faces at the forefront. If you scroll through our new Instagram channel that we launched just a little over a year ago, you'll see just faces. You will not see an M&T logo baked onto that picture. You'll see it on LinkedIn and on Facebook in the appropriate places, right? But not there. And not when I'm putting a customer up, because it's not about us. Because our customers and our employees are not marketing materials. So again, take the spotlight away from ourselves. It's not about us being proud and announcing and telling all these things, but it's about us showing what we actually do in our communities every day. Because guess what? M&T Bank has benefits like 40 paid hours of volunteer service a year. And our employees use those hours to go into their communities and make a difference. Okay, so when it is Black History Month, our AARG resource group gets together and uses their hours to go in and make a difference. Well, let's put that up on social. Let's find a business owner who is using our services. But in my post, I'm not talking about how they're using our services, because that also leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Like, no, you're using this to make it about how you help. And we don't want to do that. We don't need to say we're helping. Meet our customer. This is what they do. This is why they do it. This is the impact they make. That's it. Right? That's
Yeah.
all that needs to be said. So this idea of showing and not telling became a new way to think and keep our pillars that we had in place, but reframe our internal conversation to find those stories and using the right creative in the right platform, surface them to our viewers who now are excited to connect. They're excited to follow the bank and engage with those posts because it's not about us. It's about you. It's about us together, right? And so that shift really does help tell the stories that show those four pillars that we live by.
It's an incredible story right there, Shannon. And to me, it almost feels like a flywheel a little bit, that when you showcase the customer stories, when you make them the hero of the story, you're able to weave into there where M&T Banks played a role and supported them in that journey and things like that. And you're talking about so many different ways that the bank's able to connect authentically with customers across the country, across different communities, things like that.
Yeah.
And then from there, people are able then to seek out more information. And it might not necessarily be on social media. It might be on their website or going into their local branch, things like that. They're able to learn more about how M&T Bank can help them. And then they go and live their story and make change through, whether it's getting a loan through the bank or opening up an account or something like that. And then they have their own story, and then you're able to source more stories, and it's really cool how it all plays together, that customer experience. Could you talk a little bit more too about like that term right there, customer experience? Because I was doing a little bit of research. I know you've worked with Sprinkler for a long time, and I saw that you won a CX Today CX Leader of the Year award, and you gave mention to Sprinkler as well. And one of the tools specifically there that's able to help you connect with those customers and hear their stories and things like that. Can you speak to that side of social media too, outside of content creation and distribution, but the actual customer experience, how you approach listening, how you connect with customers, things like that?
Definitely. And I think that it's first important to say, while I did win that award, I have to humbly just give credit to my entire team across the bank. And I always say that social media is a team sport. And I'm like playing on like a dream team because so many people work so hard, right? Like, where do those stories come from? Well, it's our people on the front line that know their customers so well, right? It's our compliance team and our legal team that makes sure that when we do products and services, it's safe. It's the entire group comes together and shows up to work with me to deliver a holistic social media program. And to your last question, the content that you put out is only one piece, right? And I do want people to feel as they scroll through our feed, they all feel this is me. So somewhere in there, as you're scrolling, there's a diverse content mix that will look like you, sound like you, resonate with you. And we will sprinkle in the financial content and the annual letter and things like that, right? And all of that unique content mix is there. But to your point about using tools like Sprinkler, and there are other tools out there that people might use too. These partners like Sprinkler help me to synthesize data so that I can make informed business decisions and make sure that what we're doing is driving on our business goals. So the customer care team, voice of the customer team, a huge important extension of what I do, helps people with banking. When they comment and say, hey, I can't get in my account, or I have a question about this card I saw, they're right there responding, and they're using Sprinkler to triage that conversation and make sure every single person is answered through cues and a system
Oh,
there. So it helps with that, right? And that's very important. And I can use it too. And we can have the bank respond to other things that are not helped, right? But other just sort of
mhm,
congratulations, thank you so much. So Sprinkler really does help manage those comments. Now, we can also use Sprinkler to see comment volume. Hey, we're getting a lot today. Did something happen? Right? What might
mhm.
be going on to cause a spike? And then what might we do? Do we post something fresh? Do we pin a post based on what we're hearing? And we can see that happening within our own spaces. And then the other layer is beyond our own spaces. What are people saying? Maybe they're talking about us, but not on our own Facebook page as a comment, but they're just talking about us somewhere else. Sprinkler allows us to pull that in too. So I can look at that landscape and say, what is the theme this day or this week or this quarter? We can do this in real time. We can look at it as crisis management. We can plan for future content sets based on what we hear. But it's us having that ability to look at what people are saying, because social media is not just a content push, right? And if you're looking at it that way, you're not looking at it holistically, because social media is a two-way conversation. And you get verbatims from people that can really inform where do we go next with our content calendar or our product set, our team, right? Our volunteering efforts. You can learn so much through listening. And then there's reporting built in too. So we can drill in by tags, and we can see what content performed the best, what may not have, and why. There's some really robust layers we can do that can help you report very quickly. Where in the past, I recall days in agency life where I would scroll through a feed for 6 months and take out a paper and a pen and write down, okay, that one had 2,000 impressions and 500, and add them up with a calculator, like
Manual
insane.
reporting.
Yeah. I mean, insanity. But like with a tool like Sprinkler, when I started, it was very important to get the tagging consistent so that you don't double dip. You can't count the same post twice and inflate numbers. There's a way to do it very clean. And so we built all of that in at the forefront so that now we can say, actually, the head of HR wrote me the other day and said, how did our employee appreciation posts do? And we had several beautiful PDF, impressions, engagements, links, verbatims, the whole thing. So a tool like that has been very helpful in efficiencies and in scaling, just organizationally seeing like what's on the editorial calendar, and then giving us that ability to go even beyond ourselves and say, wow, this is what's going on in the world right now. This is how we're a part of it or not. And what do we want to do to respond to what we're hearing? And so, the tool is a very important partner. And so I always say to my Sprinkler counterparts that they're an extension of my team. And I look at it as a real partnership every single day. And it's not, I guess I'm a client and all, but like we're a team,
Mhm.
and we really operate that way. And it's a really effective way to really get our data and do what we need to do. It works. And I'm excited to continue to deepen that relationship with them as we go on.
It's a really cool place to see now, Shannon, where we've gone, that we've talked about the story and the brand aspects and how that intrinsically ties to the work that M&T Bank does. You mentioned the team, you talked about some of the processes, the technologies, things like that that go into making social media run and making that run effectively for the bank. And this is a really cool place here. I think that we can get to our main topic where we're talking about employee advocacy and one of those layers of social media. Okay, we're going beyond just what M&T Bank social is doing. How can we enable our employees, to become part of that story, spread it in a different direction and things like that as well. So curious if you could just walk us through a little bit for starters, Shannon, of what does employee advocacy mean to M&T Bank and what does that program look like within how you approach social media?
And I have to say, employee advocacy is one of the most important things that we're investing in social, period.
Mhm.
And with all the reporting that I have, I just talked about all the tagging and all of this. I can see what M&T Bank Social is doing in terms of pulling in engagements and impressions on its LinkedIn page. And when I look at our employee advocacy library and I look at what employees are driving on their LinkedIn pages, it's more than what the bank is doing. And many months when I do my monthly report, it's more than what M&T is doing across all of its social channels, adding them all up. So employees are just kind of walk through how this works. Employees are armed with a a portal that I build out. And I use Sprinkler to build it out. So they sign in and they see like a drop down menu where they can do featured, they can pick the corporate channels, they can pick an explore tab. And there's all these topics. It could be brand commercials, it could be our DEI efforts, it could be the resource groups, it could be community, customer experience. There's lots of topics. And when you go and toggle to that topic, M&T Tech is one of my favorites. You toggle to the topic, a library of stories come up that are approved. So the pictures have gotten photo release forms signed. If it's a product or service, compliance has approved it and I've locked it. If it's not a product or service and it's just a, hey, look at, we volunteered and did this cool thing, it's not locked. You can actually edit it and tweak it and make it your own. You don't have to publish what's been written. You can if time is tight and you're not sure what to say, it's there. But employees go into this portal and they see topically content that is relevant to them, that they can say, this is meaningful to me. I want to put this on my LinkedIn page. And they can do that and they can schedule that. So I can find 5 at a time and they don't all go on my LinkedIn right now. I can pick days and times for when it goes live on my page. So the program is allowing employees to manage their own LinkedIn presence with vetted, approved, interesting topics organized by themes. And I always say to the teams as I go through and I do road shows in person with the teams and I kind of show them how to use it and schedule. And I promise them that every day you come in and you look at this, you will find something new. This will be easy to use and this will be fun because if it's not fresh and if it's not fun, it's going to be another task that nobody wants to do. So I have a job aid. They can keep it at their desk if they can't quite remember it. I have a written document of how it works. Hey, you can get in. It's pretty intuitive and hands-on. I'm sure most people don't even need the job aid, but it's there because it has to be easy and fun and fresh. And we're finding, like I said, our employees are going into that library and they are sharing and making an impact on LinkedIn higher numbers than the bank is doing on its own organically. And that does not surprise me at all because people follow people they trust. They want to know what their friends are doing and support friends and family. And it's working. When I put up commercials on M&T's social bank page, which I don't do anymore, they don't perform. People skip ads. They don't want to see the bank share their own commercial. Everybody, nobody wants that. But guess what? When our employees share our commercial, which feature real customers and are actually really, really great commercials,
Yeah.
they take off on the people's LinkedIn pages.
Hmm.
I am
Incredible.
blown away by
Yeah.
what this is doing, and I'm excited about it. And so I want to continue to build. And what's nice too is that I can do more than double. I mean, like there's no limit to what I can publish in advocacy. There is with corporate. You know what
Hmm.
happens when a brand puts up a post every hour? Fatigue,
Hmm.
annoying. People unfollow you because you're flooding me. you're pushing too much on me. I don't want to follow this company. This is too much. This is crazy. People stop. You lose them.
Mhm.
So I can minimize and focus on a few key messages, going back to our 4 pillars on
Mhm.
corporate. But there's so much other local, wonderful stories to tell. Here they are. And last year, we had over 500 pieces of content in our advocacy library for people to share.
Nice.
And our
Incredible.
employees are exceeding from an impression standpoint, an engagement standpoint, what the bank is doing on its own. So I just can't, I'm an advocate of advocacy. I can't say enough like how beneficial a program like this has been and how excited I am to continue to find ways to deepen it. And like I said, in my new phase, I'm kind of thinking through, it's the sales component. And
Mhm.
that's going to be the next layer, which actually is advocacy too, in a way. It will be a similar kind of a thing, but there's an
Mhm.
added layer of safety when you have people talking about deals. They have certain ways to talk about certifications and numbers. So we're going to continue to evolve advocacy to work even harder. But like I said, it's been live for a little over a year. And it's really given us just tremendous, tremendous results. And people who have been scared of social, they've historically been told social's scary for financial institutions, and they were really nervous. They have confidence now. They have a professional LinkedIn presence right now, and it's positively impacting all of the teams.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And that positive impact is coming from, I like how you mentioned the word trust in there,
yeah,
because I think about that so many ways when I think about social. M&T Bank obviously being, in a services-based industry, for Lighthouse, for our team as well, also being a services-based industry, people are going to buy who they know, like, and trust is kind of the saying that I tend to go back to. And so giving people ways to tell the stories that we're talking about telling is a big way for them to build trust with people who might potentially work with us. I think there's a trust factor as well when you're talking about the employee advocacy and the portal and things like that. Employees trust that what's coming from you and from your team that's creating this content and providing it through the advocacy portal is going to reflect positively, not just on themselves when they post it to their LinkedIn, but also reflect positively on the bank. And that makes it a lot easier, probably, I imagine, to secure buy-in and whatnot and go from there. And then there's also really a trust factor too when you think about the bank wanting to provide something like this to their employees. We always think about things from the skew of talent attraction, acquisition, or retention when we talk about our work at Lighthouse, and thinking, hey, does something like this help contribute to how employees feel connected to the work, feel that fulfillment, connected to the mission of a place like M&T? And does that support talent retention? That's something that I'm always kind of curious about. I don't know if you have
well,
any insight on
I,
that, but
I have data that says it's like it's 79% of employees stay at a company longer if they feel their company is social media and digital savvy.
Mhm.
They want to see that. And it's important that even in a regulated environment, right, that
Mhm.
we remove those roadblocks that prevent people from leaning in and telling these kinds of stories and doing this work. And so by making it safe, right,
Mhm.
and making it easy, like you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to, you can come in because it's already written for you. You can just tweak it if you want. You don't even have to do that. It's good to go. These kinds of things are making it easy for people who might otherwise not want to come along. And the growth has been impressive. Sprinkler showed me a chart when we were getting going, and our success manager said, "I want to show you this." It was a hockey stick. He said, "What is this adoption? I've never seen this globally at Sprinkler. I don't have a client who has had adoption of advocacy and usage do this." And I was really proud of that. Um, and I want to we continue to see that number grow. People are signing in, they're using it. I'm getting good feedback. The feedback is going to continue to help me build this out. That's where the sales piece is coming in. People want to get more. I want to get into more deals. I want to get okay. Let's do that. We're gonna do that the right way, though. We're gonna roll that out next. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing that in a trustful way that doesn't leave anybody behind, and continue to make this investment.
It's an investment over time.
Yes.
And that growth, like once you have it started, it's so much easier to see that proof in the pudding and say, okay, we're on this trajectory. This is how we got there, and understand that from the data, being data informed, like you're saying, and then say, okay, if we want to take this to a 2.0 level, here's how that would
Yeah,
go.
exactly. I always
Are
like
the-
to solve and push, right? Just because
oh
it's
yeah.
working, great. I'm glad that's working. Now how do we make it better? Like I'm always trying to find those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if other people, other companies that might be watching this, Shannon, if they want to get started at the 1.0 level with employee advocacy and layering that into how they approach social, where do you think is probably the best place for them to start?
I'm started with focus groups because I figured I thought, why don't people do it? Right? What is the reason? What is the roadblock and the barrier? So I wanted to kind of hit the road and kind of see what people thought. That will vary from company to company, but for us being in a regulated environment, it was people being scared. They don't want to get in trouble. It's just easier to do it not at all than to do it wrong and get in trouble, right? So you had to make it, I had to make it safe. People didn't have time because everybody's underwater and has a lot of meetings. I also heard I'm not a writer. And I heard I don't have any followers. Nobody cares what I have to say anyway. So what difference does it make? So then it was my job then to then figure out how do I reverse and remove those roadblocks. So that's where job aids came into play. The social media policy to protect us came into play. Pre-writing content, locking content. There were things like that. And then also then there was some education around how to just grow a following. So I developed a deck that goes through all the data around why advocacy helps for a brand perspective, a hiring and retaining talent perspective, giving you more reputation and reach. So I share data. I share like, hey, these are the roadblocks and this is how we get around it. This is how you refresh your LinkedIn page. So that builds the framework of belief, the why, remove the roadblocks. This is how we refresh. I haven't even shown you yet the portal, right?
Hmm.
So you don't
Yeah.
just jump in and go, hey guys, sign in. Because again, someone signs in and they don't get it. It's not easy. It's not fun. It's not fresh. They're not coming back. So
Hmm.
let's not go there yet. Let's do the homework. And it takes a second. You want to adapt it for your team at hand, right? You're not going to do the exact things I just said. This just happened to be what I found in my group. But remove that, set that up, build that education, right? And
Hmm.
then, okay, now we all feel good. Now we're set up. Now we have this portal. Now you know why you're doing it. Now you're not nervous, right? Here it is. And then I had to get airtime. When I see a spike in adoption, it's when I have the chance to present in person. It could be after a fireside chat by one of our senior leaders. It could be a team meeting. And regionally, we pop into different teams and speak. So there's touch points. I do a monthly newsletter to remind people, hey, these are the top people. Because I give people points when they share in the library. It actually tracks a point system just for fun. It
Nice.
doesn't really mean it's kind of bragging rights. Like I was the winner this month. So there's a newsletter that celebrates those people. Hey, if you missed it, these are the top stories of the month. So I see a spike when the newsletter goes out. So I try to find multiple touch points to remind people that it's there. And then because they've had the data, the education, their LinkedIn page is up to speed and they're proud of it, and it's fun and it's fresh and it's easy to use, it has been easy to see that growth pick up over time. Okay, so there's some front work happening there. And then you got to get out and you got to remind people, you got to get in their face, not too much, but, just enough to be, meet people where they are. And then keeping that library fresh. Because again, people sign in. I just saw this last week. What is this? They feel that way. They're not going to want to go back and sign in again if it's never new. So, so I would say, do the homework, listen, and do what's right for your business, and keep all that in mind as you build. And just know that, like anything, it just takes time. It just takes time, and it will come.
Yeah. Great way to start there with the basics, with the processes, with getting buy-in, with showing people some of the benefits too, but also just communicating to them, hey, this is where this fits into the bigger picture. We want you to be a part of this.
That's right.
You mentioned in there too, handling some of those objections, maybe of why people might be a little cautious or apprehensive about starting to post and earning their participation is incredible.
I thought of one more thing too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I added a button that people can suggest content. So
Nice.
so if you don't see, I always say everyone should feel this is me, whether you're an employee in advocacy or you're a follower in one of our feeds. If you don't feel something's you, tell me. I love to get stories. They say, Shannon, be careful what you wish for. Oh, no. I am wishing for hundreds of stories. So employees are now going to that volunteering event or that luncheon or whatever it is. They know there's a photo release form on DocuSign. They take the picture, they upload it in, they send me the information, they write out a story. Don't worry about grammar. I can help finesse that.
Hmm.
But now the employees have the ability to be part of the creation and put in their stuff.
Perfect.
So it's
Love. Yep.
you invite people in that way too, which has been really, really great to see people lean in and suggest those stories. And they love it.
Love it. Make it
Yeah,
participatory,
that's right.
making your customers the heroes of the story on social, and then helping your employees become the hero of the employee advocacy stories they get to share.
That's
Love
exactly
it.
because social media is a team sport, like I always
Hmm.
say. So yeah, it's great. I'm really, really excited and proud. It's I think one of the finest programs that I've done in almost 20 years doing this is empowering employees to tell these stories. It's an awesome program.
And feeling blessed that you took the time here to come join us on Live with Lighthouse and share a little bit of the behind the scenes. Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thanks.
Got one last question for you before we wrap up here. We always end every episode with the called the Be a Lighthouse question. I'd like to give our guests an opportunity real quick to send a real quick shout out to somebody who's supported you or helped you learn something new lately.
I follow a contact that I love, Jason Pfeiffer. He is the editor in chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. Love his newsletter. Every day he posts on LinkedIn. His advice is it's just so helpful. He talks about like how to stand out, how to ask for help, um, how to like fail and learn from it. There's so many tips that he has that I would recommend folks following him and maybe sign up for his newsletter, look at his LinkedIn. He's great. I actually interviewed him when I did School of Hustle, when I had that video series with GoDaddy.
Nice.
And I've met him in person. And I'm just blown away by how much he cares about helping businesses find their success and sharing what he knows and not keeping it to himself.
Love it.
He's an open book and he celebrates people at all different stages of their career. They could be a CEO or a professional athlete, or they can be somebody who has a startup. Nice balance, fantastic advice. Highly recommend following what he's doing.
Love it. Great place to wrap it up there. Go follow Jason. Shannon, thanks so much for joining us on Live with Lighthouse. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow. So many great stories there from Shannon and so many great takeaways that I just want to wrap up a couple for you real quick. Again, keep the role of trust at the forefront there, especially if you're building a program like this from the ground up. You have to build a lot of trust when it comes to social media with your customers, with your employee advocates, and with company leadership that has to sign off on the strategy. So it becomes about making it participatory, making sure people are data informed and seeing why this is valuable to them and why it's valuable to the business. And really just being able to focus on specific stories, right? We're talking about how can we communicate a message through a channel like social media to our audience. And there's ways to do that that are going to enable your business to move forward, but also in a way that supports talent attraction and retention when you're talking about telling the stories of your customers and of your employees through a channel like social media. Wanted to thank Shannon again for taking the time to join Live with Lighthouse, and make sure to continue tuning in every week for new episodes, and make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Joe Ray. I'm so thankful you chose to join us for this week's episode. Have a great week.